All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's just about 2:30, so we're going to get started. I'm sure we might have a couple of late comers, but we will go ahead and let them in as they join. Welcome to Rewatch Listen. I'm going to keep my mask on this whole time. I'm sorry if that's hard to watch. My co-host and I, Michelle Corrales, are trying this in the same room today for the first time. So we'll see how that goes. She is going to be on the other end of the table helping me advance through the slideshow that she put together. If this is your first time joining us for Read, Watch, Listen, it's a pretty simple concept. Some lovely staff from throughout our library system have supplied us with some recommendations of reading, watching, and listening. There's going to be 3 rounds for each topic. First round being reading, second round being watching. Finally, we'll get to the listening portion. I'm joined on the call today by some awesome colleagues. We've got Jessica Callaway from our Lantana Road branch, who is temporarily working at our Glades Road branch since Lantana's closed for renovations. We've got Melanie and Roberto from our Acreage branch, Brianna Vasquez from Green Acres. We've got Jim Howser from Gardens. We'll be sharing some recommendations from Diane Gilmore from Jupiter, who isn't on the call with us today, but we do appreciate her sharing her recommendations. And we've got Jennifer Ramos, also from their Jupiter branch. And finally, we have Kim Stanfield, who was also not able to join us today, but I'm more than happy to share recommendations because they're pretty awesome as well. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first round, which will be read. And we're going to start with my friend and colleague, Jessica Callaway. Today, she's got a recommendation, All Systems Red by Martha Wells. It's a novel. I love the cover. Jessica, why don't you tell us a little bit more about why you picked this today and what you liked about it?
So this is actually a novel that I stumbled across because I was looking for a book that was under 200 pages. So this book altogether is only 180. Most of the entire series is under 180 pages for each book. I think her later books have started to get a little bit bigger. But what I love about this book is the fact that this is a book that is all about identity. So the main character is called Murderbot. Not once through the entire series is Murderbot referred to a he or a she. There's no sense of gender throughout the entire novel. It's all about finding out who this sec unit is, half organic, half made of robot parts. Is it a person? Is it a robot? Who does Murderbot want to be? He hacks his own system from the government. So he's under no one's control but his own. So the only identity that he has to figure out is him, with no help, or there's no outside environment or something trying to help him decide who he wants. He's a he in my mind, but you could be a she to other readers. It has been of who Murderbot wants to be.
Very cool. That sounds awesome. Does this author have any other books too? I wasn't sure if this was associated with any other writings of hers, or is this a standalone?
This is the first book in the series. The Murderbot Diaries is what the series is called. This is the very first one. There are a couple later. I think the next, I could be wrong, so don't count me, but I think the next one is Network Effects is the one that comes after it.
Okay.
But right now she has 5 books in the series, and the 6th one comes out next month.
Awesome. Well, thanks. That sounds cool.
I'm super excited, so I'm kind of happy.
Yeah, I would be too. And for everyone on the call too, at some point throughout the chat, I'll be sharing the list of everything that's recommended today. And of course, if you registered to attend today, I will be sending out a follow-up email with everything that's covered. So I'm sure you have your pens and paper out, but if you miss one, you'll get a full list sent to you. Thanks, Jessica.
Bye, Jessica.
On to our next item in the first round of read. We have Melanie Norberto's recommendation, I Love You So Mochi by Sarah Kuhn. I love mochi, so I love the concept of this book, but we have Melanie on the call here to tell us a little bit more about what the book's about and why she thinks you should pick it up.
So this one is a YA title. As you might guess from the cover, it is a romance. I particularly loved this book. It was the first one that I read this year. The main character, her name is Kimi. She goes, she's getting ready to graduate. She's a senior in high school. And right before spring break, she has a big fight with her mother. Her mother has always put this pressure on her to be a great Asian American artist. And Kimi has perpetuated this idea in her mother's head that she's like a great painter and she loves art. And she's going to go to this art college in the fall. And then she realizes, she finally has to confront the fact that she's dropped out of her art classes and has had art block for months. So they get into a huge fight, and Kimi decides to go to Japan, specifically to Kyoto for spring break to visit her estranged grandparents. And while she's in Kyoto, she meets a cute boy who works as a mochi mascot for his uncle's mochi stand. And so it's a bit soul searching. It's a bit of romance. If you've been to Japan like I have, there are some big tourist destinations that you might recognize. So it's a fun time if you like travel, if you like romance. It was really cute and had a happy ending, which I'm always down for. So
very cool. How long ago were you in Japan, just out of curiosity?
I went in summer of 2017.
Nice. Very, very cool. I'm going to go there one day too.
I want to go back.
Very nice. Well, thanks for that recommendation. I can totally relate to having some creative blocking. So maybe I should go to Japan and maybe fall in love. Anyways, on to our next recommendation for this first round. We have the one and only Brianna Vasquez here from the Green Acres branch to tell us more about her pick. It is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne Brown. Take it away, Brianna.
I picked this book up because honestly the cover is really cool, so that usually draws me into most of my books, but I saw a lot of hype surrounding. A lot of people were like really excited for the release of this one, and one of my favorite descriptions of this book is just Aladdin and Jasmine if they had to like kill each other. So it's like this enemies to lovers like book, and it follows I don't want to give too much away. I'm really bad at like summarizing books, so I'm just gonna leave it at the Aladdin to Jasmine one. But I really liked it because I grew up, I loved mythology. I liked, I was a Percy Jackson kid, so like I liked Greek mythology, and it led me into other things. But one thing that I really appreciate about YA right now, like young adult books, is that they're introducing and they're like showcasing a lot of different mythology. So I think this is like African folklore, and it's so cool. It's just like, it's a refreshing, like it's all new, and I love it. So that's why I really like this book. I highly recommend it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's set in a completely fictional world too, not in a existing place. Okay.
It's like a high fantasy. So there's a lot of magic and mythical characters and stuff like that.
It's awesome. I like the cover too.
Yeah.
Thanks. Up next in this round, we have Jim Howser from our Gardens branch, and he's going to be sharing his choice, Steel-Driven Man, John Henry, The Untold Story of an American Legend by Scott Reynolds Nelson. And I'll take it over to Jim to tell us a little bit about why he picked this book and why he thinks we should all maybe take some time to read it.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I chose it because it's got two of my favorite subjects. It's about Black music and American history. And it was written by a history professor, but it's not written in a real scholarly tone. It's for a general audience. I think he's a very good writer. Just for some background information, John Henry was a Black man who was involved in construction of railroad tunnels. And he used a sledgehammer and a long steel rod to drill holes into rock, and then they used explosives, loaded it with explosives, and blew away, the rock. And they repeated this process over and over and over again until they had a tunnel. According to legend, he engaged in this contest, in a steel driving contest with a mechanical steam drill, drilling holes, and he defeated the drill, single-handedly, the mechanical drill, but he puts forth such a great effort that he died. He had a heart attack, something happened to him, he died, and that's the legend. And the book is about this professor's search for that legend, for the historical figure behind the legend. And it tells a really interesting story. He believes he's found the actual man who inspired the legend. I don't know if he did or not, but this man was named John Henry, and he burglarized a grocery store, and he was sentenced to a very harsh term, prison term, like 10 years in prison for that, for a burglary, a simple burglary. And back in those days, this was after the Civil War, when they were building the railroads and all these tunnels and things and connecting different parts of the U.S. The prisons would often lease out convicts to private companies like mining companies and railroad companies and turpentine companies and logging companies, things like that. And these companies would treat them very brutally, and it was very hard work and very dangerous work. So what I liked about the book is not only it's kind of like a detective story, and he does research, and we're librarians, that's what we do, research. He kind of brings out an important part of American history about this forced labor thing, where a lot of African Americans, not all, but many of these episodes of forced labor involve African Americans mainly, because they really were powerless. They couldn't fight back. And immigrant workers, like Irish immigrant workers who had no family here, had no one to take up their cause. And they would be, through debt peonage, convict lease labor, et cetera, put these people to work to build America. And the other thing I like about it is it sheds new light on the legend. Did John Henry really engage in this contest? Looking back, we think, oh, he did it to save his job. We see jobs being replaced by machines. We say, oh, that's why he did it. Probably not, because he, he would have been happy to be taken out of the tunnels and have a machine take over his labor, because it was just so dangerous. In the tunnels there was this dust that was created by the drilling and by the explosions that got into their lungs and could kill them. They could just die from that, just from breathing in the dust. And they did die from that. Many died. So it kind of, again, sheds new light on the legend and says, well, we don't really know why he engaged in that contest, but maybe it was for a reward, for time off, better meals, that kind of a thing. But the real challenge for John Henry was to survive the job, not to defeat the steam drill.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it is an interesting part of history for sure. I'm glad you mentioned the connection of the narrative, because more and more people are starting now to take a peek of America post-slavery and how slavery in a lot of ways just transitioned almost into a federally mandated, legalized way of keeping a certain part of the population down and disenfranchised and second-class citizens. So I'm glad you mentioned that part of it too. But yeah, I definitely want to check this out as well. I'd only heard of him almost on like like a Paul Bunyan type figure, growing up and stuff. So
right, a lot of people say it's like a tall tale. Whether it really happened or not, I don't know. But it's African Americans. It's an African American legend, and through their legends, they told stories. They told their history. Mm-hmm. Because so much, a lot of African Americans just didn't know how to write. They didn't have the education, and they told their story through music and through storytelling, that kind of a thing.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you for that recommendation. You can find a physical copy of it in our library catalog if you want to put it on hold. And up next, we have a recommendation from Diane Gilmore, who, as I said, wasn't able to join us today on the call, but I'm more than happy to probably not as enthusiastically share it because I haven't had a chance to read this book. But funny enough, I have had a chance to see the author talk about this book at a bookstore once. She was very entertaining. I had a good time. It was outside of work, so I had a glass of wine, but I do remember enjoying the talk. One of the coolest things about this book for me is that it's set in Florida, and it is kind of like a quirky story, just remembering what she told us about it. It's about a woman who inherits her family's taxidermy business, and like a lot um, of books that have been shared in this first round, it does really get into a lot of the characters who identify as queer, and I think that's pretty cool. More and more books featuring them. It's a fun book. It's almost like, I don't know if the author would like me saying this, but if you have a notion in your head of what like a Tim Dorsey kind of novel is, it's like that, but a little bit less cartoony maybe. Maybe Tim Dorsey won't like that either. So yeah, on to that. We'll move on to the next recommendation. We have Jennifer Ramos on the call with us from the Jupiter branch as well. She will be sharing about hood feminism and notes from the women that a movement forgot by Mickey Kendall. Tell us a little bit more about this, Jennifer. You're muted, Jennifer. There you go.
Sorry. Maybe I did that to myself.
It's okay.
So this is a fantastic book. I've been trying to read more nonfiction to diversify my reading habits. And I'm so glad I came across this. This is a great book. It is a series of essays written by Mickey Kendall, who is a pretty well-known advocate in the African American community and in the feminist movement. And in each essay, she focuses on issues that are not traditionally considered feminist issues, but do affect women and therefore should really be considered feminist issues. So she talks about how in the past and currently, what is currently considered feminist issues are not very inclusive. They have a very narrow focus, and we need to expand the sphere of concern. So she goes on to talk about how everything that affects women is a feminist issue, and that includes things like affordable housing, food insecurity, adequate healthcare, everything like that, and how we're so focused, people in the feminist movement are so focused on certain issues of like pay inequality and, you know, being the CEO or the next president. And these are all really important issues, of course, but those other issues that basically are things that focus on just surviving are equally as important, if not more so. And how traditionally, you know, those are issues that are facing, you know, working class women or women of color. And so they've been, you know, somewhat excluded from that conversation, and we risk alienating them because we have such a narrow focus on the other half of the issues. It was really eye-opening to me, and it really changed my mind about a lot of things, and it really made me do a lot of research. And I feel like I've come out of it being a little bit more proactive, or willing to be more proactive because of the things that she talks about in here. So really good book, and I definitely recommend the audiobook because the author reads it, and she just has a really great narration, and she uses really down-to-earth language. It wasn't very highbrow to the point where I couldn't understand. It made perfect sense to me.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I mean, everything you're talking about, obviously very important issues. And I'm glad that some of these concepts are starting to become a little bit more mainstream, like the idea of intersectionality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I too have been kind of trying to learn a little bit more about some of this history because, if you go back to the suffrage movement, it's pretty well documented exclusionary practices going on through that whole thing as well. So I hope everyone takes a little bit of time to read this book and others that are related to it, because I think these are some of our more important social issues of the time, actually. Thank you for sharing. Up next, we have another recommendation that I'm going to share on the behalf of someone who was not able to be on the call. This recommendation comes from an awesome staff member and colleague, Tim Stanfield from the Jupiter branch, or the Royal Palm branch, sorry, last one was Jupiter. This book is Party of Two by Jasmine Guillory. And I do have a little bit of what Kim gave me for what was behind her enjoying this and wanting to share with everyone. So I'm just going to share briefly what she sent me, and then we'll move on to the second round. So she's a New York Times bestselling author who was recently featured on the Today Show. So Kim saw her on there. And this book is a rom-com. That's short for romantic comedy for anyone who doesn't know.
Chris's favorite.
Second favorite. So this book is a rom-com that involves this hotshot junior senator, Max Powell, and up-and-coming lawyer, Olivia Monroe, who moves to Los Angeles to start her own law firm. It looks really cool to me. It looks like it got a good review from Cosmopolitan magazine, my favorite magazine. And yeah, I think it looks cool. If you're into rom-coms, I think this would be a good place to start if you haven't heard of the book. If you have heard it and you want to talk about it in the chat, you should let me know. All right, on to the second round. Watch. Traditionally, we have Michelle take over here, but I said I'm going to give it a try today because I think everyone really likes hearing me talk. So, no, it's like a mask thing. We're being healthy in here. Anyways, I hope you are at home as well. The first movie that we have is from Jessica Callaway, back here from our Lantana branch. This is a modern adaptation of King Arthur. Why don't you tell us a little about this one, Jessica?
So there are several reasons why I love this movie. One of the first things is it is a Guy Ritchie movie, and he's one of my all-time favorite directors. So this just continues his long line of fantastic movies that he's made. One of the other reasons that I really like this movie is that this movie really deals what King Arthur had to do before he became actual King Arthur, what it was like when he was raised in a brothel, of what he had to do to survive. He had to be an entrepreneur. Like, he had to get that money where he could get it, of living in the city life. He wasn't a king. He lived as very poor. And they take that and make it very witty. And between that and the wit and seeing what he was like before, the fact he didn't even want to be king, he was kind of forced upon him. You really see just like a very funny, gritty, just extremely witty TV show or movie, sorry.
Awesome. I've been dying to ask you, since I saw this was your pick, how would you rate this against Sword of the Stone?
Oh, that's mean. Those are two very different categories.
I'm not trying to be, you could say no comment, but I've just been meaning to ask you that.
I love Charlie Hunnam, who plays the main character. He's like, if I had a celebrity freebie, he would be it. So I would choose this one. It's Guy Ritchie.
Yes, I'm a fan of Guy Ritchie, so I do want to watch this too. And if you haven't ever seen Snatch, anyone on the call, that's my watch recommendation for the day. Snatch by Guy Ritchie.
It's very good.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Up next, we have another film. This is a 2008 version of another older thing made into a movie, which is always a good thing. It's Speed Racer, and we're gonna have Melanie hop back on here and tell us a little about why she liked this one.
All right. So this title, I actually saw it in the movie theater when I was a kid. And I fell in love with the bright, vivid colors and the wacky storytelling. I will say there should definitely be an epilepsy or flashing light warning on this, because some of the race sequences have a lot of flashing lights going on. So keep that in mind. This is a Wachowski movie, actually. So if you've watched things like The Matrix and Cloud Atlas, or even Jupiter Ascending, you know the Wachowskis really go all in with world building. So this movie is really fun. It's one of those movies where I would say it's objectively not a great movie, but it's a really fun movie. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, and I watch it probably every year or every other year. It's just a really good time. It's very bright. It's very colorful. It's about Speed Racer. Some of you might have grown up watching the Speed Racer cartoons. I grew up watching Speed Racer: The Next Generation on Nickelodeon. And so this is the story of Speed as he's starting to make a name for himself as a professional racer. This is about 10 years after his older brother died in a horrific car accident on a racetrack. And Speed gets an offer to sign with a big racing company, a big automotive company. And his family is kind of against the big racing companies because they tend to be very shady in that way that big businesses can be. So there's a look at like the dark side of racing, but it's still really funny. And it's like a cartoon brought to life where there's action sequences where it's like pow in bright colors. It's very fun. So I highly recommend this movie. It's wacky and I enjoy it a lot.
Awesome. I always like the cartoon, especially the theme song. Do they do an updated version of that?
They do. That is they play, I think, like an instrumental version of it a couple of times, but the end credit music is the theme song, but an updated version. It's really fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much. And that is available on DVD at our branches and Hoopla as well. Up next, we're going to go back to Brianna. And yes, I do like this show. So I won't talk about it too much, though. This is Parks and Recreation, if you're unfamiliar. I want to hear Brianna tell us all about it. Where are you at, Brianna?
Right. This is like my comfort show. I always go back to watching it whenever I just want to have something playing in the background. But overall, it's like a workplace comedy, which is like my favorite type of show. And the main character is Leslie Knope, who's right there front and center. And she works in the Parks and Recreation department in her town of Pawnee. And it follows her and all of her co-workers, and they're just trying to make Pawnee just great. But it's just fun because it plays on like a lot of it makes fun of a lot of like government work, and like maybe some of the citizens in Pawnee are a little bit questionable. So it's just really funny and like cute, and it's quirky. And it's like a fun type of comedy that doesn't like bring people down too much. It's just like really it's silly, and I really like that type of comedy.
Brianna, this is Michelle speaking. People compare Parks and Rec to The Office a lot, you know that. I watched Parks and Rec before I saw The Office, and I'm glad I did, because The Office has like a huge, I don't think I would have loved it as much as I did if I'd seen The Office first, just because, you know, it's like you're either one or the other. Yeah. You've seen The Office, right? I think that was
some of it, yeah.
Yeah. Which you prefer, Parks and Rec in comparison of the two?
Yeah, I like Parks and Rec more. It's more upbeat.
Yeah, it's sillier. It's like every episode is really funny, and yeah, I think honestly, I think it's the better of the two, Parks and Rec versus The Office, but I can relate more to The Office.
What are you trying to say?
Is when they just hate on librarians. It's like a whole subplot in the show.
Yeah.
Very realistic too.
Yeah. But I'm like Jim on The Office. I'm constantly staring off at my invisible camera whenever Chris talks.
This is where I have the obligation to let everyone know that the British Office is better, but the American version is okay. and I just have to do that. No, I really like Parks and Rec and the American Office as well. And I'm glad that you mentioned the library too. I thought you might have been a little nervous or something, but this is a safe space. We can make fun of librarians in here too.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like in the chat, a few people agree that Parks and Rec wins. Looks like The Office hasn't gotten any votes. So don't tell Michael Scott. Anyways, we're gonna move back to Jim here for his recommendation. This is a documentary called Race Hoss, The Life of Albert Race Sample. And yeah, why don't you let us know about your pick here, Jim?
Okay, I picked, this was the first item that I picked when I decided I wanted to do this, to participate here. And it's because it's one of the most powerful things I've ever seen, powerful and very moving. I first heard this man's story back in like the 1980s, the late 80s on the radio. And it's an amazing story and it stuck with me, you know, ever since then. It's a biographical documentary in which a Black man, actually a mixed race man, you know, Black and white, named Albert Sample, tells his story of his life. And it's a story which he starts back when he was a child and goes through his adult life and then to his time spent in prison. And the name of the documentary, Race Hoss, is taken from his prison name. That was his nickname in prison. They all had nicknames, either given to them by the guards or by the other inmates. It was actually put together by a man named Sean Hepburn Ferrer, who is the son of Audrey Hepburn and Mel Ferrer. And he read Race Hoss's biography and said, I have to meet this man. So he tracked him down and developed a friendship with him. And then out of that friendship came this documentary. And there's even a little bonus with the documentary where Sean Hepburn talks about his relationship with this man and tracking him down and gives you more information about him. And it's just basically Mr. Sample standing on a stage. I think it's at University of Southern California, a stage right there on the campus, and just talking to this totally captivated audience for I don't know, hour and a half at least, maybe going on close to 2 hours. It is kind of long, but it's not boring. He's just a great storyteller. I think within 5 minutes of him walking on stage, you're going to realize that you're in for something really special. He tells again about the terrible things that happened to him, not only in prison, but throughout his life from his childhood on up. But despite that, you're going to be laughing throughout the movie because he's got such a great sense of humor. And, you know, I think that's what sustained him, kept him, you know, helped him survive all the things that happened to him. It's better to watch it without knowing much about what happened to him, so I'm not going to reveal much other than one of the keys to the story is his relationship with his mom. And a big part of the story is the time spent in prison. It was a Texas prison. And this was back in the 1950s, 1960s. And they had already done some prison reform by then, but it was still pretty horrible, still a pretty bad place to be. In fact, the convicts referred to it as the burning hell. So that gives you an idea of what was going on in there. It's got, you know, it's got this very dark subject matter, and it's, you know, the language is very strong, very adult subject matter, but it's still a very inspirational and uplifting story. And you know, I can't recommend anything more than this.
Well, I'm sold. And yes, I hope everyone would agree. I know we do talk about a lot of fun stuff on here, but I think it's necessary every once in a while to engage with some less flattering sides of history, maybe some darker subject matter, as you put it. I don't really know how else we're going to learn from some of humanity's mistakes without doing that. So I do appreciate you sharing that. And I'm going to add this to my list of things that I'll be watching for sure. Hope everyone else does as well. Thank you, Jim. Up next, again, you'll have me speaking on someone's behalf here. This is another recommendation from Diane Gilmore at Jupiter Branch. It is her watch suggestion. It's the TV series Luther. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I have seen a little bit of it. I didn't finish it. I have a bad habit of starting things and not finishing them, whether it's TV or, more important things with people that are counting on me. I'm just kidding. Anyways, Michelle thought that was funny. So this is a pretty cool series. If you're into any sort of, detective who did it kind of show, that's a good place to start. But this is a unique one because Luther is just such a cool character. He's kind of one of the coolest guys I've ever seen on TV, to be honest with you. I mean, who doesn't like Idris Elba? Come on. So I'm going to share a little bit of what Diane put in when she let me know that this is an item that she wanted to recommend. So I can get a little bit of her opinion in here. She said this is a series on BBC. It's one I wish she could watch again for the first time. I love shows with flawed heroes, definitely is, and Luther is the tops. He has more in common with the bad guys than he can admit and breaks all the rules to catch them. It puts those he loves in bad situations and costs him dearly. I agree, and I definitely think if you haven't seen this show, you should watch it. And thank you, Diane, for sharing that with everyone today. We're going to move on to Jennifer's listen recommendation, or watch recommendation. I'm very sorry about that.
That's all right.
This is the Twilight Zone, and yes, this is the new adaptation of Twilight Zone. I'll leave it to Jennifer to maybe explain a little bit about it more. Take it away.
Hey, so this is I guess it's not even really a remake, but the new version of the Twilight Zone, and Jordan Peele, as you see on the cover, is the host of it. And I have not really watched the original Twilight Zone. I've seen bits and pieces of episodes here and there, but because this new version was so fantastic, I'm gonna have to go back and actually watch the original. This was just done really well. It's obviously, everyone knows what the Twilight Zone is. So it's a series of episodes, sci-fi episodes, basically. But the sci-fi aspects of it are just a light veneer over a lot of social issues and social commentary that is a part of it. If you do watch it, I recommend, there are 3 episodes that hit me pretty hard that I thought were really well done. One was Replay. The second one is Point of Origin, and the third was Not All Men. Replay is more about issues of gun violence, police violence. Point of Origin is kind of about immigration, and the third one, Not All Men, is about domestic violence and men's violence. It was just really well done, and I have really no words almost to describe it because it was just so entertaining. And I believe we just got in the second season of this. It just got released in DVD and we just got it, and I just picked it up, so I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, but it can't get better. Unfortunately, I just found out the other day, after the second season, they're done. They're not making a third season, which is really disappointing, because it was just so fantastic.
Yeah, very cool. As most people that are familiar with Jordan Peele's work, they're big fans. I like his films. I did watch the first episode of this again. It was something I started, but it was set on an airplane, right, or something, if I'm remembering correctly, or am I making that up? I might be. Anyways.
I don't remember the first episode.
Yeah. Sorry, I watched it a while ago. It's okay.
The first episode is the comedy stand-up.
Okay.
And it's about fame and the price of fame, basically. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Jessica in the chat, I don't know if you could see it, asked, will you put those 3 in the chat? I think that was.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yes, and if you're on the call and you want to interact with anything that's being talked about or share your opinion, feel free to use the chat. That's what it's there for. So yeah, or if you have a great book that you've read or listened to, or a film that you've watched lately, we'd love to hear that. I would scream it out on the camera for everyone. Okay, so up next is our last pick for this round. And again, this is from Kim Stanfield at our Royal Palm Beach branch, who was not able to join the call today. But her watch recommendation is Wendy Williams, the movie. This is a Lifetime original that I haven't got a chance to see yet, but I'm sure most of us are familiar with Wendy Williams. She's one of the most popular TV personalities on her daytime show. So I'm going to share with you why Kim decided to recommend this today. She says that Wendy Williams made herself a household name with her larger-than-life personality and her ring-mastering of celebrity drama, even engineering delicious celebrity beefs in her quest to get to the bottom of a great scoop. This authorized movie gives Wendy a chance to go back and tell her own story while she is still living. So if you want to learn more about Wendy Williams' past, where she came from, how she became the person that we see on our TV every day, definitely recommend this. And Kim gives it her 2 thumbs up approval. So we're going to move on to the next round here. And sorry, I will unspotlight you there, Jennifer. Sorry about that. This last round is listen. If you were with us last month, you will remember that we had some audio samples in this round. I wasn't able to pull that off this month. I don't blame myself though, so don't feel bad. I think there was a little change in the way that they're doing things over at a little company called Google. So I'm gonna email them. I've got a Gmail account. I'm sure they'll get back to me about what's going on. So other than not having the samples this month, we will have all those great recommendations. I have to admit, this is usually my favorite round. And yeah, this month is the same. So we're gonna start with Jessica Callaway's listen recommendation. This is Neil Gaiman's Coraline. Take it away, Jessica.
Thank you. So I absolutely 100% call myself a Neil Gaiman fangirl. I will throw myself totally under the bus with that. However, this book, this book, this audiobook out of all is like one of the pinnacle, I think, of his works that I have ever read or listened to. The author reads the book himself. And when he reads it, the sound effects that he uses are so spooky and gothic and just like they fit so well into the storyline, where like you have like little mouse scampering and you hear the sounds, like the music that goes with the back of it, like just as something that you're listening to as a book. It's an entertaining experience just to listen to it. That is makes it one of my all-time favorite audiobooks.
Yeah, he's awesome. Everything he does. Sounds like we don't need to convince you of that anymore. I'm sure you've seen it, and maybe some other people on the call have too, because I do know Neil Gaiman's probably pretty popular among most of the people that work at the library. But there's a really cool video of him reading, this online too, at least the intro, and then he had a bunch of his friends read the rest of the book too. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's really cool. But I listened to a little bit of this while I was trying to figure out the samples, and he does do an awesome job, as anyone who's familiar with his work wouldn't be surprised. So thank you, Jessica. That is available digitally in Cloud Library, and you can find a physical copy too if you like ingesting your audiobooks that way. We'll move on. We're back to Melanie, and we will jump right in here, Melanie, with your recommendation. Tell us about it.
So Utada Hikaru, or if we put it in Western style, her first name is Hikaru. She is a Japanese American pop singer. She is best known for her work on Kingdom Hearts. She has done the theme song for Kingdom Hearts, Simple and Clean. I don't know if that's a theme song or just like the best known song from it. She's done like 4 different songs for Kingdom Hearts, which is a video game by Disney. It's a huge franchise. Her father was a record producer and her mother was an enka singer, which is a more traditional style of Japanese music. Sort of like Japanese jazzy-ish. I don't know. It's complicated to explain, but this is her single collection. So it's some of her most popular works, including, I believe, a Japanese version of Simple and Clean from Kingdom Hearts. Her songs, I like to listen to foreign music or techno music while I'm working on things that require me to type, because I'm less likely to make a spelling error while listening to lyrics that I can't understand. But her songs are very pretty. I like them a lot. I've been listening to this album a lot recently, so I thought it was perfect to recommend with this. So I would recommend looking into her. If you grew up playing Kingdom Hearts, or if you've watched a lot of anime, you have probably encountered some of her songs, because she's also done anime openings and endings. So yeah, her stuff's cool. I recommend giving it a go.
Yeah, it's really cool. And not like, for everyone else on the call, this is like many things I've listened to personally, but Melanie let us know what her favorite track was at track 13, I think. Can't remember the title off the top of my head, but
it translates to Sakura Drops, so like cherry blossom drops.
Okay. Well, I'll spare everyone my imitation of the sample, but there's a beautiful, strong vocal, just like kind of build up like the first half of the song. That's great. And I'd say check it out for sure. Thank you, Melanie. Up next, we are back to Brianna, who is going to be talking to us about another pretty cool audiobook, Good Morning, Good Night, by someone everyone is probably familiar with for another thing that he's been working on, but Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I'll let Brianna take it away and tell us all about this.
All right. So this is like a book that Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote. He's most known for recently is for Hamilton. And what I really like the story behind like how he created this book is that he would every morning tweet like a good morning tweet to all of his followers. And then at the end of the day, when he was getting ready to log off of Twitter, he would do something along the same theme of his good morning tweet, and he'll say good night to his followers. And they were really like sweet. They're always encouraging and like nice. And a lot of his followers looked forward to them every single day. So they asked him to make a collection of them and put them in a book. So it's really cool. I like the audiobook version because he reads it himself. And if you want to listen to it in Spanish, it's read by his father, who's another really cool, like upbeat person. His dad is like a whole nother, like I look up to his father as well. Like he's also really awesome. So like they're really fun. They're nice to like listen to, and it's good to like, listen to in the morning to just start your day.
Sounds cool. I was actually talking to Michelle that maybe on our mornings here at the Annex, we could start our day every morning listening to one.
Yeah.
She said maybe. I'll keep everyone posted for next month.
He actually said he would do the pep talks, and that's why I said maybe.
Okay, that's the whole story. But I was gonna read the ones that existed.
Yeah.
So it was a compromise.
Yeah.
Anyways,
when you're done, you have to make up your own.
Well, thank you, Brianna. This does sound awesome, and I've had the chance to listen to a few of these too, and they are really cool. I mean, you can't really they make you feel good. So yeah. I'm a big fan. Up next, we're gonna move back to Jim, who is going to be talking about his listen recommendation classic African-American ballads from Smithsonian Folkways. Tell us a little bit about this, Jim.
Sure. Again, I picked it because it went well with the other two items I picked.
Of course, yeah, you did an awesome job.
Right, the Black oral tradition, Black storytelling tradition, folk tales, folk songs, storytelling, that's all part of that tradition. And ballads, these African-American ballads are like stories, again, telling stories through song, various types of subjects like stories about, work-related songs like John Henry. There's another one, Casey Jones, which is work-related. There's songs about imprisonment. One called Gallows Pole, performed by Leadbelly, which was actually a version of that was recorded by Led Zeppelin. And songs about lovers like Frankie and Johnny, and songs about tragic deaths and murders, again, like Frankie and Johnny. And a lot of these ballads, they combine various of these elements and other elements too, and they're, again, telling their story. They're called African-American ballads because either they were very popular among African-Americans or they were written by African-Americans and come out of that storytelling tradition. But some of these songs actually go back to the British Isles, There's one song on there, a very beautiful song, St. James Infirmary, that people believe, that some folklorists believe go back to, the British Isles. Another one called Stew Ball, again, goes back to the British Isles. Some of the performers on this, all these performers are excellent on this record or on this CD. Some of them are actually white because it's, it wasn't limited. Music wasn't limited to one race or the other. There was a lot of mixing going on between the races. And, plenty of white people recorded John Henry, not just Black people, for example. And Woody Guthrie is on this, Dave Van Ronk, and other white musicians on this record, or on this CD. I keep saying records. I'm aging myself here, dating myself. Some of the great Black performers include Brownie McGee, who's a master on blues harmonica. Again, Leadbelly, I mentioned. Pink Anderson, and his name, the band Pink Floyd took part of their name from his name, Pink. So we've got a good, strong cast of musicians. Some of them are pretty obscure. One's even from a Texas prison, a group of Texas prison convicts recorded right there in the prison. And just, a great mix of music, very enjoyable, very entertaining. Some of it is, a lot of these ballads and a lot of early African-American music, have an element of resistance and protest in them. And it's kind of, it's disguised maybe. They use symbolism and double meaning and irony and things like that to hide what they're really singing about. But you don't have to understand that to enjoy the music. And you can, you can look up these songs on the internet and go to the Wikipedia page for some of these songs and get a better feel for what they're about and about the history of the songs. So it's a lot of fun. Again, I'm a fan of American history, so I've enjoyed listening to this.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. There's a lot of great songs and they're very powerful. And there's a couple of a cappella ones even that are really, really strong. That this is beautiful music that sounds like you're hearing something important when it was made. So I definitely, if you have the time to listen to this, I highly recommend it. And Jim, we were just yesterday, I think Jennifer and Jessica on our pre-call, we were talking about vinyl records too. So, I think they're still around and kicking. Yeah. So, everyone's listening to a little vinyl every once in a while. Jessica, do you have your hand raised? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, cool. But thank you, Jim. That was awesome. We have one final recommendation for today, and that is, oh no, I'm sorry. I skipped over Jennifer. I'm sorry. We have two left. So we're gonna go back to Jennifer. I'm all over the place, raising hands and doing things. You would think I never did this before. So Jennifer, we're back to you. Our second to last recommendation for the slant round. It's The Lost Words by Robert Mcfarlane, audiobook. This sounded really cool when I was reading about this, so I want to hear all about it from you.
Uh-oh. Okay, I'll do my best. Okay, so I have been I am not a big poetry person. So I have been trying to get into poetry lately, making an effort. And this one had gotten some really good reviews. So I decided to check it out, and I'm very glad that I did. The Lost Words is basically a bunch of nature poems. And I think the history of why the author created this series of poems is really interesting. Apparently, not too long ago, the Oxford Junior's Dictionary dropped about 50 words from their dictionary, and they were all nature words or nature-related words, but they put in a lot of modern words like broadband and Wi-Fi and a lot of very technical words. And the reasoning that they did this was that, those words had more relevancy to children today than words like acorn or dandelion, bluebell, all those sorts of words, nature-related words. So in response to that, Robert Mcfarlane created these nature poems that heavily used nature words, that specifically the words that were dropped from the dictionary. And it's just a really beautiful, first of all, the physical book is beautiful. If you get a chance, you have to look at the illustration on it is absolutely gorgeous, so detailed. And the audiobook is just really good as well. They have multiple narrators on the audiobook, and everyone has like different accents, and it just comes across really well. If you're a person who likes, nature poems like by Mary Oliver, I would recommend that you listen to The Lost Words. It's beautiful.
Very cool. For someone who loves poetry myself, I definitely want to listen to this after I was reading about it. So yeah, definitely will be checking this out. I hope everyone else thought that this was cool too. I really like the story there behind it. I thank you for sharing. Melanie says she remembers reading about these dropped words in her reference class. All right, cool. Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like cutting the historical memory from things or something. It's pretty weird. Anyways, we are on to the final recommendation for the day, and it looks like we actually timed that out perfectly. Good job, Michelle. We were here till 3:30, so she was making sure that everything went smoothly today. So yeah, I have about 1 minute left if we're going to get everyone out of here on time. Our last listen recommendation does come from Kim Stanfield at Royal Palm Beach branch. This is The United States vs. Billie Holiday. It was a recently released Hulu film based upon the life of the singer, Billie Holiday. If you're not familiar with her work, she is a legend. She is no longer with us. And there is a few different tellings of her life and how it really worked that are somewhat conflicting. I think the movie brings that to light. We're not really necessarily talking about the movie that much, but it'd be, I guess, a shame to not mention that a little bit. I did listen to the soundtrack. There are mostly modern renditions of classic Billie Holiday songs. So I think they're great. They're produced a little bit more, you could tell they're modern, and but I wouldn't say they're complete, like adaptation, sort of like, I don't know, if last month Brianna had the soundtrack from Bridgerton. And yes, I've listened to that since, but it's not quite like a pop retelling of a classical music song or anything like that. It's pretty close to the original with just like a little bit more sophisticated production, I would say. But Billie Holiday was definitely a legend, and her story kind of aligns with a lot of similar things that Jim was communicating about John Henry, where there's some legend, some myth, some definite twisting of history by the federal government about her and stuff. That she was involved with a lot of drug-related legislation, and even the head of Federal Bureau and her had a little relationship, I believe. So that's the story of Billie Holiday. I just told you guys. Anyways, the songs are great though, and it's available on Hoopla. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone on the call. Maybe we'll give a little soft Zoom hand for all of the staff. Again, keep showing up and recommending all these items. Anyone on the call that isn't from the library, I appreciate you being here as well. I know we have a few people that log in pretty regularly. I see some new names in there. I hope that these activities are beneficial to you as you go about trying to make sense of everything there is to read, watch, and listen out there in the world, because there is a lot. And I will be emailing everyone the full list. I did drop it in the chat. I would like to invite everyone to join us again on April 14th at 2:30. It's the second Wednesday of every month for the immediate future. Hopefully we'll keep coming back. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next time. If you ever have any questions about this or any other activities going around the library, get in touch with me. My name's Chris Jankow, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye-bye.